Today I'm going to be starting more seeds using the Blocker Nano 9 and Nano 25. I'm Amanda, the ever hopeful gardener. Join me while we start some seeds. Let's start with what I'm going to be using today. First, let's talk about the soil mix I'm going to use. I don't use a special recipe for soil blocking. This is Coco Loco by Fox Farms, and I have sifted it using a dollar store colander. To the Coco Loco, I'm going to add a bunch of water, and I'm going to go ahead and do that now so that the coconut core that's in this mix can go ahead and start absorbing the water. I would like to point out that coconut core gets a bad rap, typically because it is not washed enough and has a high saline content. However, Fox Farms triple washes their cocoa core, so you don't have to worry about it in the Coco Loco. I'm gonna mix the water and the Coco Loco around, and I already can tell I need more water. Woo! There's a giant spider. It didn't come out of the Coco Loco bag. This has been sitting in my garage. That might be the biggest spider I've ever seen. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Okay, I found it. It's not near me. Okay, just keep mixing. I can already tell I need more water. The more water your mix has in it, the easier it'll be to press out your soil blocks. There's less friction. It's on the move. Don't come over here. Also, I hope there aren't any more. I'm gonna let this soak for a little bit. The goal is to have a consistency like mashed potatoes, and you want to be able to wring water out of it. So this feels pretty good. I'm gonna let it sit for a couple minutes while I talk about what else I'm using today. What's great about the Blocker Nanos is you don't have to have a specific tray. You don't need to have certain windowsill trays or cafeteria trays. You don't have to have 10, 20 trays, but you can use all of these. I have this like sandwich Tupperware lunch container. The Nano fits perfectly in it, and I just use the sandwich Tupperware lid as its humidity dome. I'm also going to use, this is a non-pita bread from Costco container, and I'll press the blocks out on this and then use this as the humidity dome. I also have very fine vermiculite that I have added cinnamon to, and this is what I'll sprinkle on top of the blocks before I press them out. Today I'm gonna be starting things like lettuce and kale in the Nano 25. It creates 25 of these small blocks. And then I'm gonna do some bigger seeds like beet, hibiscus, cardoon, and honey patch squash in the Nano 9, which creates 9 larger blocks. There's several really great things about the Blocker that sets it apart from, say, the conventional soil blockers you might be familiar with. And the first is when you fill your Blocker, you are able to then actually seed your soil blocks, sprinkle them with vermiculite before you press them out. Huge time savings, and I just find it easier. The second thing I love that differentiates the Blocker is the ergonomics of it. For someone with carpal tunnel and arthritis, which I have both, it's so easy to press the blocks out. And you actually don't even push down. You will end up pulling the bottom part up to meet the top part. dog wants to come out. Hold on. Here are some soil blocks I made with the Nano 25, and in them I seeded foxglove. Let me give you a closer look. And you can see I did it on one of these repurposed food containers. I also brought over a conventional soil blocker, and with this one you fill it with soil, and then you have to press the blocks out by hooking your thumb over the top and your fingers in the bottom. And it's this motion that after a long time, or even after a couple times, can really start to wear on you. So let's get started making blocks. I'm going to press the soil firmly into all the blocks, taking care just to make sure the corners have enough soil in them. I'm not going to push down super hard. I just want to make sure all of the cells are filled with the same amount of pressure. Once they're filled, I'm just going to get rid of any extra soil that I made a mess with. I can take a toothpick, a pencil, a skewer. I'm going to create a couple holes because these are larger seeds. And let's do this row 7 honey patch squash. If you try to place large seeds in a soil block after pressing them out, it'll cause the block to lose its integrity and to basically explode. But not like that. But not in a dangerous way. All right, I have my seeds in. I'm just gonna take a little bit more of the soil to cover up the tops of the seeds. Now we're gonna sprinkle the Vermiculite cinnamon mix. It's important if you're topping your soil blocks with the Vermiculite to get a fine grade Vermiculite as opposed to a coarse grade. Using the Vermiculite helps retain moisture while the seeds wait to germinate. And the cinnamon, whether it works or not, smells great and hopefully helps with any fungus or algae growing. It's time to press them out. All right. You can see that the top part of the Swift blocker is resting on the top of the soil. And I'm going to take the 2 handles and I'm just going to pull the bottom piece up to meet the top. Ta-da! I'm going to take my makeshift humidity dome, pop it on, and then I'm going to label so I know what I planted in these soil blocks and when I did it. May 8th, honey patch squash. I'll leave the humidity dome on until the seeds germinate. Then the humidity dome will come off and I can plant them out after I harden them off. Let's do some kale in the Nano 25. While I'm pressing the soil in, and again, I'm not pushing it in super tight. If you create your blocks too dense, too densely compacted, the roots, the seed, it'll have a really hard time pushing through. So I'm just gonna press it in, make sure the corners are good, make sure everywhere is completely filled. Take off the extra. Because I'm using arugula this time, those seeds are super tiny. I won't need to make a hole for the seeds. What I'm actually gonna do is take the top, which already has dibbles molded into it, I'm gonna press it down, create some indents in the tops of the soil blocks. And then let's pick some kale to sow. All right. I could do Purple Moon from Renee's Garden Seeds, or I could do Red Russian from Pine Tree, or Feathered Frills from M.I. Gardner. I think for this one I'm going to do the Feathered Frills. While I'm seeding this, I will talk to you a little bit about Swift Blocker as a company. I had the opportunity to get to meet the owners of Swift Blocker, which is a husband and wife, Dan and Ashley. They live in Michigan. Ashley owns a flower farm, and her husband, Dan, has an engineering background. And he watched her seed starting every year, and of course his engineering brain couldn't help but wonder, how can we make this more efficient? And that is why he invented the Swift Blocker. Now Ashley, who's a flower farmer, the commercial Swift Blocker series are geared more towards the way she would uses a Swift Blocker, a soil blocker. But because there was such a high demand from the home gardener wanting something similar but with fewer soil blocks, because they don't need 250 of any given plant, Dan decided to come out with, first he came out with the minis, the Mini 75 and the Mini 27. I have the Mini 27 and love it. And then he decided to take it a step further and come out with the Nano 25 and the Nano 9 and the Nano 4. I don't own the Nano 4, but I would love to get my hands on it. Dan, if you're listening, wink, wink. Okay, I've got seeds in all of the blocks. I'm gonna sprinkle with vermiculite. I'm not gonna put extra soil on top because these seeds are so tiny. Ta-da. Again, I am going to pull the bottom piece up to meet the top. You might be wondering, okay, great, how do you get them out? Well, once they start growing, I did some celosia in this. Once they start growing and forming roots, it's very easy to pick them out. Our humidity dome and label. I already have 25 plus 9 is 34. 34 soil blocks done that quickly. All right, next, I think I could use this cafeteria tray and I could do 4 sets of 25. Or, oh, where did you come from? Got all the wildlife happening today. It's a giant slug. All right. Losing my seeds because it's windy. I'll do a 10-20. I'm going to do several of the 9s because I want to do some larger seeds. I want to do the beets, the cardoon, and the hibiscus. Let's get back to talking about Dan and Ashley. So I got to meet them last fall. I came to one of Ashley's flower farming workshops. It was so cool. We made like dried flower witches hats and got permanent jewelry, which I actually still have on. And I got to go see Swift Blocker's operations. They are American made with Michigan metal steel. And it's funny, Dan actually has like a steel worker that is used to doing things for cars because they're outside of Detroit, and got super pumped to make these with Dan. So if you buy a Swift Blocker, you are supporting a small American-made business. Ashley packages up every Swift Blocker herself in their kitchen at night after their daughter goes to sleep. Okay, Badger Flame Beet from row 7. These seeds are not as big as the squash seeds. I did make a small hole for them, I'm not gonna cover them with more soil. I'm just gonna kind of zhuzh the hole shut. All right. Okay, some vermiculite. Boom. I like to make my soil blocks directly on whatever they're going to live on until they germinate and I plant them out, because I don't want to move them around a ton. They should be stable enough to do that, and typically they are, but I just don't see the point. Okay, next we're gonna do cardoon. I used these Nano Swift blockers to plant my tomatoes this year, my loofah, my celosia, just a bunch of stuff. I did receive them after a lot of my seed starting was mostly done based on where I live in my last frost date. Otherwise, I probably would have done every single thing in them. Okay, oh, no, don't pop out, go back in. A little extra soil on top of these. Almost forgot to label. If you make your soil blocks and find that you have trouble pressing them out, try adding more water to your mix, or you might need to sift your mix. If there is not enough water, they won't press out easily. And if there's like a large piece of bark or wood fines, because you didn't sift, that can cause the blocks to not press out. The 9 also comes with dibbles already molded. Let's try that actually. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spray the tops of the soil blocks with water from a spray bottle before I put the humidity domes on. And I'll do this probably every morning until the seeds germinate. For this cafeteria tray, I'm going to use saran wrap as my humidity dome because I don't have anything that fits perfectly over it. And using saran wrap is my least favorite thing to do for a humidity dome, which is why I don't really use these cafeteria trays anymore. I just wanted to show you that you can swift block on almost anything. Once your swift block soil blocks have germinated, how do you water them? You don't have to spray the tops anymore, but you'll start watering from the bottom. And it's really important to have some type of water container that is going to give you a slow, controlled flow, because you don't want to, you don't want to water the blocks from the top. You're going to water from the bottom. So you're going to pour the water directly onto whatever tray or container they're in. And you want to do it slowly. And see how I'm not pouring the water on the blocks, and I'm slowly adding it to the bottom of whatever container they're in. And I'm not doing a lot. And I'm going to let these blocks didn't need water, so they're not going to absorb this water very quickly, and I'm actually going to pour it off, which is what you can do if you overwater them. I water my soil blocks once a day, and I let them sit for an hour or two, and if they don't soak up all the water, I pour off the excess water. If they soak it all up super fast, they probably needed a little bit more, and I give them a little bit more. But this is your best friend, is a gooseneck watering can for watering your soil blocks. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. And if you enjoy videos about gardening and composting and DIYs that are not overly produced, overly edited, or with flashy graphics, you've come to the right place. So feel free to subscribe if you'd like a bunch more basic videos in your feed.